Hi everyone and welcome to English4U. I'm Pat.
And I'm Kai.
So we're going to start our literature article today. It's a book called Wonder, and it kind of takes people back to school times. It's that sort of school-age young people kind of novel. Do you remember your first day at any of the schools you've been to? I struggle with elementary school these days.
Yeah, I remember because I've seen pictures.
Okay.
So I don't know if I remember the memory or I remember the picture.
Good
but
point.
I do have a sort of memory of my kindergarten class. So
wow.
Maybe 5 years old.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I can't.
For you?
I even struggle to remember my first day at like senior school, which would have been, or secondary school for us in the UK, which was 11. I would have worn a tie for the first time and a blazer because that was the uniform.
Right.
But in terms of that, no, nothing else really. Just vague memories of seeing all the new people because there were only 2 kids I'd been at elementary school with in my class.
Oh, okay.
We all get split up into different classes and some didn't go to that school and just sort of looking around, okay, I know him. Who else is in my class? Who are these people?
Bunch of strangers.
Yeah, I'm going to be in there for the next 5 years with because we're all sitting in like name alphabetical order. So I'm next to one girl whose last name is Wright and in front of one girl with the last name of Zarziki.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of like, okay.
So you're way in the back of the class.
Oh, yeah. We're off on one side. It wasn't sort of like front to back. But that's
good.
I've only got vague memories of that sort of first session where everyone's learning everybody's names kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that bad, really, compared to what the main character in our story goes through.
Yeah, his situation is quite different, I think.
That's right. So let's read through day 1, find out about his situation and what happens.
Reading.
Wonder. Your first day of school was likely scary. Of course, most kids experience it when they are 5 years old. August Augie Pullman, however, is already 10. Augie was born with a rare facial deformity. His mom was teaching him at home because she wanted to protect him from bullies. Later, though, she decided to send him to Beecher Prep, a fancy private school. Arriving at Beecher Prep is a shock for Augie. Not only the students but also some teachers react badly to his appearance. Worse still, a mean boy named Julian tells everyone that Augie has a disease called the plague. Anyone who touches him must wash their hands quickly or they will get sick. At first, Augie copes with this cruel game with the help of his 2 new friends. Both Summer and Jack seem like they'll support him through thick and thin. But later, Augie hears Jack making fun of his looks with Julian. It makes him feel really alone at Beecher Prep.
So the article begins with the subject Kai and I were talking about in our opening, saying, your first day of school was likely scary. Yeah, you're kind of being left, you're going away from your parents, and you don't really know anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And for most people, you're pretty young. Just like the article says, of course, most kids experience it when they are 5 years old. That was the case for me.
Right.
First time away from the house. Some people in Taiwan, though, their first time at school is maybe even 3 years old.
Yeah, I went to a play group. It wasn't even like kindergarten, but somewhere that my mum could leave me and there'd be other kids of the same age and a bunch of sort of local mums or preschool teachers sort of around. So I'd gotten used to that, I think. So maybe going to an extra school wasn't as scary as it would have been, but it's definitely a bit of a strange experience, but it gets even worse for our character. We see in the article that August or Augie Pullman, however, is already 10.
Yeah, so that's quite unusual.
A little bit.
But there are people who do homeschooling.
Sure, I think it's maybe more common now than it was when I was growing up.
Yeah, and I think more common in the US as well.
Probably.
But in any case, let's find out the specifics of Augie's reason for going to school so late. The article tells us, Augie was born with a rare facial deformity. So facial is an adjective, and it means relating to the face. In addition to how it's used in this article, in this story, you'll often hear facial with words like expression or cleanser. So facial expression, facial cleanser, which is like a soap. But in the magazine, it's an adjective for deformity. What's a deformity?
A deformity is a medical problem where a part or parts of the body don't grow properly. They don't have the normal shape or form. Now, this definitely affects how they look, and often it can affect the function of these parts as well. So there's something about Augie's face. It looks very different from how most other kids look. We say it's very rare, so it's extremely uncommon. So we can probably guess from the context that this isn't just a small facial deformity. This is probably something very noticeable, quite significant.
Yeah. So the article supports what I guessed earlier. His mom was teaching him at home because she wanted to protect him from bullies. So, protect is to take care of something in a way that keeps it safe from bad, scary, or dangerous things. For example, in my normal life, I put my glasses in a special case to protect them when they're in my backpack.
Very smart idea.
Yeah, I don't want them getting scratched. They're really expensive.
Yeah, scratched and smashed up. Here, Augie's mum was protecting him from bullies. So a bully is a person who is cruel to anyone weaker than them and uses their power to make them sad, afraid, and uncomfortable. Now, this could be physical power, so a big kid kind of beating up a small kid. This could be using the power of popularity. You've got lots of friends, so you kind of make fun of a kid who doesn't have friends. It could be anything like that. Bullying as a noun with the ing kind of gerund form. It could be physical. It could be name-calling. It could be excluding people from a group. We could also talk about cyberbullying, which is online leaving nasty comments on Instagram, sending messages.
Social media focused.
All of that kind of stuff. And of course, to bully someone is using this word as a verb. So, of course, unfortunately, kids being kids do tend to kind of react strongly until they grow older to people who are different from them.
Yeah.
And unless their parents are really kind of teaching them from a young age, don't do that.
And sometimes it needs the actual experience of meeting someone different and realizing, oh, this is a thing I'm supposed to be good about.
Exactly.
Instead of, oh, this is something I'm scared of. So you can be taught something as much as your parents like and as much as you like, but sometimes it doesn't stick very well.
No, and sometimes you can kind of get swept up into it by peer pressure and all those other things that happen at school. So
which will definitely come into play in this story.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can see why Augie's mum wanted to maybe keep him away from a place where he might be targeted because of his facial appearance by all these bullies.
Yeah, and so she did change her mind. The article tells us later, though, she decided to send him to Beecher Prep, a fancy private school. So even though this is a fancy private school, and that means it's more expensive to go to, there's still going to be problems because, like you said, kids are kids.
Kids are kids. Now, I've seen that something prep is, I always associate that with American schools. What does the prep part mean?
It means preparatory.
Okay.
And it's supposed to really help the kids get ready for university or college.
Okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to... I think it's just supposed to sound fancy.
Okay, so it's more of a... Yeah, we have different, I guess, we don't often see that in front of our schools. We might have something that was a something or other grammar school, which sounds quite fancy and British.
Very old-fashioned.
Okay, so we see in the article that arriving at Beecher Prep is a shock for Augie. So to arrive at or arrive in somewhere is to first come to that place, to get there for the first time. For example, you might arrive at work every day. It's when you first get there. You arrive at school, or you might arrive in a country. And we also saw one of our grammar points here, which is the use of a VING gerund phrase as the start of a sentence. So here, arriving at Beecher Prep, this is the subject of this sentence. So we then use the verb is, and then we modify it with further words. Here are some other examples of how we can use a gerund phrase as a subject. Drinking coffee late in the day will keep you awake at night. So the subject is drinking coffee late in the day. That's a gerund phrase. Here's another. Seeing a large cockroach on his leg was a scary experience for John. So our gerund phrase is seeing a large cockroach on his leg.
Yeah, and in addition to scary, you could also call that a shock.
Yes, it would be a shock.
I think. And a shock is a bad surprise. It's something you don't expect and you don't like. So the example we have is hearing her sister screaming at a convenience store clerk was a real shock for Anna.
Like, wow, I didn't expect her to do that.
Yeah, I thought my sister was nice, but in fact, she's screaming at this poor person. So definitely a shock in that respect.
Okay, so why is going to this school a shock for Augie? Well, we see that not only the students, but also the teachers react badly to his appearance. So we have a few things to look at in this sentence, starting with our second grammar point, which is the use of a not only but also pattern. Not only but also kind of means the same as both or and, but it does look fancier when you're writing. So we often use it to make our sentences look kind of more complex. Now here we're using an inverted pattern, which means the not only comes before the first subject and then but also comes before the second subject. It has the same meaning, both subject 1 and subject 2, but again it's a more complicated, nice-looking structure. So we could say, for example, not only the fans, but also the players enjoyed the exciting baseball game.
Nice. We've also got some vocabulary words in this sentence. So the first one is react, a verb. And react means to behave a certain way when something happens, or in the article's case, toward a person, react to a person. Maybe when you learn something or find something out, or you sense something with your eyes or ears or nose. So the example is, her teacher was surprised to see that Paula reacted well to the news that she'd failed her test.
So she didn't cry. She didn't say, this is impossible. Take my mark back. She was like, oh, okay, I need to study.
I understand. I will, yeah.
Yeah, it's related to the noun reaction, which is the thing that somebody does. So the teachers and the students react badly to Augie's appearance. The noun appearance means the way a person or a thing looks. It's nothing to do with what might be inside that person. It's just what you see on the surface. Here's an example sentence. If you're going for a job interview, you need to pay attention to your appearance. It's important to look smart and responsible. Yeah, if you turn up to a job interview not looking prepared, not wearing nice clothes, then the employer might think, I'm not sure if I want this person working here.
Exactly. Yeah. Appearance is definitely important.
It's not everything, but it plays its part.
Yes. So, not only the students, but also teachers react badly.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty bad from the teachers.
Yeah, that's very disappointing
You
to
expect kids, but you think the teachers should know better and be able to set a good example.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop there.
Oh, no.
No, the article tells us, worse still, a mean boy named Julian tells everyone that Augie has a disease called the plague.
Ew.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound good to hear, and it sounds even worse to know that, oh, a student is being this mean.
Yeah.
But we have a fun little phrase here, worse still. It's a phrase you can use when you've already talked about a bad thing and you plan to talk about something even more terrible. Just like we have different forms for comparing things with good, better, best, the adjective bad has a similarly strange comparative set, bad, worse, worst. So we're saying worse still, something bad.
Yeah, even worse than what we just said.
Yeah,
and
even worse.
The even worse thing here is that not only is everybody reacting to Augie's appearance, but this nasty little kid, Julian, says Augie has a disease called the plague.
Rude.
So a disease is a medical problem that's recognized and understood by people. They can go, okay, based on these tests or what we can see, you have this disease. It's got a name, it's got science behind it, it's got research. It doesn't mean it's curable, but there you go. Some diseases are caused by bacteria or viruses. Other diseases can happen when our body doesn't work or it just kind of stops working properly later on in our life. For example, we could say, because of Leo's heart disease, he has to take 2 pills every day for the rest of his life. Now, here we're using the plague. The plague, if you sort of think about history, it's one of these horrible diseases that comes and wipes out millions of people at various times in history.
Yeah.
The Black Death, various different plagues.
The bubonic plague.
Yeah, they kind of hit they don't happen these days in that particular form. COVID-19 is kind of a plague in its way. But it's used as a cruel joke in the story. The idea being that, like, this isn't just a problem with Augie, it's a disease he has and therefore could pass on to others.
Yeah, it's just another way to make him feel alone and to bully him. So, based on that idea of disease, the article clarifies that anyone who touches him, meaning Augie, anyone who touches him must wash their hands quickly or they will get sick.
So, yeah, that's kind of what Julian's telling everyone. It's like, no, he's caught something nasty. You can get it too.
Yeah.
So we see in the article that at first, Augie copes with this cruel game with the help of his 2 new friends. So if you can cope with something, you manage and you get through a difficult time or situation. You deal successfully with a problem. Although here we find this only happens at first. So he's able to ignore Julian and anybody else who's calling him names because he's got 2 friends who support him and stick with him. And so he goes, okay, some people like me. It's not everybody. I can ignore these kind of idiots and carry on.
Yeah, and so, as it says in the article, both Summer and Jack seem like they'll support him through thick and thin. So we've got his 2 friends, Summer and Jack, and we've also got a similar grammar pattern to the one you already talked about. So it's very similar to not only, but also. It means 2 things are the same, or 2 things are not the same. 2 things are the case. Augie thinks Summer will support him. Augie thinks Jack will support him. So you can combine the 2 ideas into one sentence and say Augie thinks both Summer and Jack will support him. So what does support mean?
Well, support is a verb and it means to give assistance, comfort, encouragement or something like that to another person or thing. You could financially support someone by giving them money. You could emotionally support them by making them feel better. You could physically support somebody by helping to pick them up or lift them in the air or help them walk home if they've hurt their foot or anything like that. You just give them assistance, encouragement or comfort. For example, Tina's friends all supported her when her boyfriend left her for another girl.
Oof.
Yeah, now we've got this idiom now, so it says they will support Augie, through thick and thin.
Yeah, and that's our pocket phrase go for today. So let's take a short break and find out what it means and how we can use it.
Pocket phrase go!
哎呦，想当年阿爸跟后阿妈求婚的时候呢，跟我约定好不会风雨，与我同甘共苦I will always stand by you through thick and thin， 真是太感人了。多年后的今天竟然是为了买不买泡面跟我吵架。哎呦，这个不是我认识的阿爸啦。Through thick and thin， thick 呢就是厚的。thin 就是薄的，所以呢，不管是厚是薄，就像呢我们中文说的，不管刮风下雨在任何情况下不顾艰难都愿意这么做，就可以呢使用这个片语咯。如果呢有人愿意跟你互相承诺，We promise to stay together through thick and thin， 不论多困难呢，我们都要在一起。这么感人的话，就跟他在一起吧。
So, like we were just hearing, through thick and thin means no matter what happens. Good things, bad things, through thick and thin.
Yeah, whatever the situation.
Yes.
So that's what Augie thinks. He thinks Summer and Jack, it seems like whatever happens, they'll support me. But then the article says, but later, Augie hears Jack making fun of his looks with Julian. Which is pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So here we have a phrasal verb to make fun of something. To make fun of something is to say mean things in a way that is supposed to make yourself and others laugh, but not the victim. So you might think it's a funny joke and everybody thinks, ha ha ha, but the victim feels very terrible about it. So you're not just saying to them like, you look ugly, because that's not really funny for anybody, but it's saying something in a way that you think is funny, but in fact makes the victim feel very sad.
Yeah. And specifically in the article, it says it makes him feel really alone at Beecher Prep. So it's not just sad, it's also making him feel like he has nobody to support him, nobody he can turn to and be friendly with. Everyone seems to be against him.
Right. Even this one guy he's made friends with has then stabbed him in the back and just started making fun of him as soon as when he didn't realize Augie was able to listen. So terrible thing to happen to somebody. And that's where we're going to have to leave Augie for today because we're at the end of the first part of the story. We'll be back with part 2 tomorrow, but now we're going to go to today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So, at the end of that first part of the story, we found that Jack was making fun of Augie behind his back.
Yeah, even though Augie thought Jack was his friend.
Right. So, why do you think Jack said mean things about Augie?
You mentioned something right at the beginning of the unit today about peer pressure. And so peer pressure is when you feel everyone around you, your friends, even people you don't think are your friends, but people who have something in common. And you see they all think a certain way and you feel like, oh, but I should do that too. So this pressure to be like your peers. And I think that's why. I think Jack is scared of being alone like Augie. So he does what everyone else is doing and says something rude about his friend.
Right. He's kind of thinking, I want to fit in. I want to be popular. I don't want to be kind of cast out from the group just because I'm friends with this other kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a good point. I mean, it could be that Jack is kind of mean in the first place.
Could be.
It could be. But I suspect that it's, as you say, it's peer pressure. And probably because, I mean, these kids are they're 10 years old, 11 years old.
Right.
They don't really understand too much. They're dealing with this kind of thing for the first time. So it's almost inevitable that they'll kind of make mistakes and do wrong things. And that's how they learn and grow, that like, oh, that was really bad. I shouldn't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we maybe can kind of let him off with, the kind of feelings of peer pressure and him being young, as long as he does something about it.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't continue down that kind of way.
Right. We'll have to see if there's a change.
Right. And see what happens in day 2. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening. For English for You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Kai.
And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonder. Your first day of school was likely scary. Of course, most kids experience it when they are 5 years old. August Augie Pullman, however, is already 10. Augie was born with a rare facial deformity. His mom was teaching him at home because she wanted to protect him from bullies. Later, though, she decided to send him to Beecher Prep, a fancy private school. Arriving at Beecher Prep is a shock for Augie. Not only the students, but also some teachers react badly to his appearance. Worse still, a mean boy named Julian tells everyone that Augie has a disease called the plague. Anyone who touches him must wash their hands quickly or they will get sick. At first, Augie copes with this cruel game with the help of his 2 new friends. Both Summer and Jack seem like they'll support him through thick and thin. But later, Augie hears Jack making fun of his looks with Julian. It makes him feel really alone at Beecher Prep.
Vocabulary Review.
Protect. Sam always wears a hat outside to protect his head from the sun. Shock. It was a shock for Simon to discover that his car had been stolen. React. People reacted to the unfair new law by complaining on social media. Appearance. Ethan doesn't care much about his appearance, and he always wears the same old clothes. Disease. The disease spread quickly through the country, and soon all the hospitals were full. Support. Marie's parents support her decision to study abroad, and they'll be paying for her school fees.
智慧小补帖
Facial. Deformity. Bully. Cope.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net